Alright guys, good morning. Let's come to the mat. And we're going to start laying back flat on the mat with bent knees and feet right in line with our sit bones. We're going to pull the rib cage down and in so we can feel the weight of the chest pressing down against the shoulder blades and those shoulder blades anchoring to the mat. Tops of the shoulders along the upper trap and around the rotator cuff group here is going to be up off of the mat so you're not adding any rib flare or mid-back extension. Anchor to your tailbone as you draw the rib cage down and in. And we're going to work our little pelvic tilt to warm up the low back. So I'm going to place my hands on my hip bones right across my hips. And on the exhale, tilt the hips back and create that C curve, that flexion, that hollowing. If you're avoiding flexion because of osteoporosis or some other spinal condition, you can just hover the hips up off of the mat about an inch to keep that flexion out of the low back, but get some movement in the lower half of your body. As we're articulating the pelvis and moving in the low back or floating the hips if you're staying in neutral, we want everything to be still from the mid-ribs, from the bra up. So there's no slide of the body through the shoulders. The shoulder girdle's not rising and falling towards the neck and towards the ears. We want to maintain the movement solely in the lower half of our spine and in our hips. As the hips are moving, we're also keeping the rib cage pulled together, both at the front of the body and at the back of the body, to bring that tight connection between the back extensors, the muscles up the mid-back, through the abdominals, to pull tight to our center, tight towards our spine, to help hold that nice alignment of those vertebrae up and down the back. We'll go for one more pelvic tilt or hip lift. And we'll come back to neutral. Finding that neutral position, that little space between your low back and the floor. We'll walk our feet and our legs together. Squeezing through inner thighs, we're going to tip the legs over to the right, picking up that left foot as you drop onto the right hip, but keeping the left side of the chest and shoulder connected and anchored to the floor. And we use our exhale breath along with the abdominal and back engagement to support the spine as we bring the legs back to center. And we tip and twist to the left, lifting that right foot so the legs stay stacked, but the right side of the chest, the shoulder on the right side, that shoulder blade stays pressed down against your mat, pulling the ribs in more. Don't let the ribs flare up. And again, we use our exhale to engage through the abdominals, the back extensors to bring the legs back to center, and inhale to tip back to the right. We're tipping across, drawing that straight line across the ceiling with the knees. I'm keeping my hands resting across my hips so I can feel the slide of my hips under my hands and making sure that I'm creating that straight line as I tip from side to side, that they're not shifting up and down. We're not creating any extra lateral flexion. One more each side. And coming back to center. We'll separate the feet about 6 bones distance apart so that way the knees are lined up over the toes. Try not to go to a wide foot position with the knees dropping in. We want to avoid that internal rotation of the leg coming from the hip. We're going to interlace our fingers, bringing our hands back behind our head to support the head and the neck. We relax the head, relax the neck back into the hands. And on the exhale, we're going to fold across the mid-ribs. We're going to lift the head, neck, and chest, and we're going to pause. And breathing here, we're going to hold this chest lift. Finding that breath cycle, that nice deep belly breath on that inhale. Exhale to use your abdominals to push that air all the way out. And finding that deep fold at the mid-ribs, letting the muscles throughout the mid-back, especially your lats, relax so you can create extra flexion. With each breath, with each inhale, exhale, try to lift a little bit higher into that chest lift. But as you're lifting, just lift and fold deeper at the mid-ribs. Try not to take that movement into your low back. We want to maintain the gap right there at the small of the back. And try to just fold a little bit deeper at the bra line, just below the pecs. As if we're peeling the shoulder blades off of the floor, just a little higher with each breath. 2 more. And slow on the descent, back towards the floor. Keeping our shoulder blades flat against the mat, we're going to open the elbows out, stretch through the chest, and elbows fold in around your face as if you're trying to touch the elbows over your forehead or nose. And we open. Letting the chest expand, collarbone spreads wide. Still try to knit those bottom ribs together as the elbows open out. One more big stretch. Letting the chest open, feeling the weight of the back of the arms pressing down to the floor. And elbows come slightly forward so you can reset the spine back to neutral. We're going to keep ourselves more flat to the mat. No chest lift just yet. And the upper body is going to rotate onto that right shoulder blade. Lifting the left shoulder blade slightly up off of the mat and back to center. So very, very similar to our chest lift with rotation, but we're leaving the chest lift out. We're staying in that flat back, and we're rolling from shoulder blade to shoulder blade. Creating a little bit of movement through the mid-ribs. One more each side. And we'll come back to center. On the next exhale, we'll fold, lifting the chest up. Head is resting back comfortably in your hands, supported by your arms. And we twist over onto that right side, and we're going to hold. Finding that breath, nice deep belly breath for your inhale. Exhale, pushing all of that air out, keeping that little gap at the small of the back and trying to twist a little bit more over to that right side. One more breath, try to push into that rotation just a little bit more. And then come back to center. We'll reset to the floor. And next exhale, fold and lift for that chest lift. Heavy at the tailbone. We twist over to the left shoulder blade. Holding here, working our breath. As each breath cycle, we try to twist a little bit more. And twist a little bit more. One more breath. Push a little deeper into that rotation. And coming back to center, resetting back to the mat. Take a moment to reset the alignment of your shoulders over your hips. Sometimes with that rotation, you can end up on a bit of diagonal with your upper body listing a little bit to one side. So you want to take a moment, take a couple breaths to reset your position. Arms are going to come out to a T, palms up towards the ceiling. We pull the rib cage in, knit in tight, and we'll bring our legs to tabletop. Moving into our full spine twist supine, we tip our legs, our hips, our lower spine to the right. Picking up that left hip, but not the left side of the ribs or the shoulders. And exhale back to center. We tip and twist on that inhale to the left, picking up the right hip, anchoring the right shoulder blade flat against the mat, and center. Being mindful that the farther we twist, the more our body's wanting to flare the ribs and arch the mid and upper back to create more movement, or what looks like more movement. It's not always about your range of motion. Thinking about that stability in your spine, that nice neutral spine, the engagement of the abdominals and the back extensors as they work together to support your spine, and then allowing movement from there. Rolling a straight line from hip to hip. Last one each side. We come back to center and rest the feet to the mat. Arms come long down by your side, palms down towards the floor. Bringing our right leg up to tabletop, we're going to hinge at the hip. Single leg lowers, allowing the leg to move in the hip, keeping the knee bend, the angle of the knee the same throughout the movement. Reaching the arms nice and long, drawing the shoulders down away from the head, away from the ears. We'll rest that right foot back to the mat. Bringing the left leg up to tabletop, we'll hinge at the hip, working those toe taps to the floor. Nice and smooth glide of the leg. And left foot rests back to the mat. Fingers once again interlace, bringing our hands behind our head. We're going to go into our chest lift with rotation. Anchor towards your tailbone. Create that little gap at the small of the back, and exhale to fold at the mid-ribs to lift the head, neck, and chest. And we twist over onto that right shoulder blade. And inhale back to center. Exhale, tip and twist to the left and center. Nice smooth rotation from side to side. Keeping that movement in the chest, in the shoulders as you move from right to left. Making sure the legs stay quiet and still and the hips evenly weighted to the floor. Last one, right and left. Coming back to center and slow to reset to the floor. Arms return long to your side. We bring both legs up to tabletop. We'll move into our leg changes and we'll hinge at the hip. You can work one leg at a time. If you want to focus on that movement without adding more compound or more speed to that movement. Otherwise, we're going to alternate. As one leg rises, the other foot lowers. Nice, smooth change as you alternate from leg to leg. Nice and smooth as you reach. 3, 2, and 1. Feet coming back to the mat, bending the knees, bringing the heels back a little bit closer to your sit bones. Not so close that your fingertips could touch the back of your heels. Working into our shoulder bridge if you're not going to articulate. Otherwise, we work our pelvic curl. Exhale to tilt the hips back, to imprint the low back flat against the mat. And we push through the feet, begin to lift. Bringing the hips up off of the mat, one segment at a time. And then slow as we curl back down, piece by piece. Moving along the back, along the spine, one vertebra at a time. Nice and smooth with that articulation. We need to create some movement at the ankle so the leg can push forward, moving towards the front of the foot. The more movement at the ankle, the better you're able to engage and use your hamstrings. Your hamstrings are a synergist with your abdominals, so the more you can activate those, the more connection you can get to the abdominals from pelvic floor all the way up through to mid-ribs. Last bridge. And curling down. Legs come up to tabletop position. We'll fold at the mid-ribs to lift the head, neck, and chest. You could always leave the chest lift out since there's no neck support with your arms. Hands are going to stay on that left knee as you reach that right leg out, and we're going to hold. We're going to draw a clockwise circle with that right leg. Nice and long, nice and smooth, reaching that right leg out of the hip. We want it to be a fairly slow circle so we don't get a lot of movement or translation on that left side. And we'll change our circle direction with that right leg. Working our counterclockwise circle, allowing the leg to flow in the hip. And we'll pull that right knee to tabletop. Let the shoulders, the head go back to the mat for a reset. And fold and lift. Hands transfer to the right knee as the left leg goes out. And we'll work a counterclockwise circle to begin with. Nice and smooth. Find that control, that stability. And we'll change our circle direction. drawing the knee in, pulling the knees to the chest as the shoulders and the head return to the floor. And we'll breathe into this stretch. Head and neck, look out over that right shoulder. And back to center. Tip and twist, look out over that left shoulder. And back to center. One more rotation from side to side. And center. Legs return to tabletop. We're going to fold and lift, head, neck, and chest. On the inhale, arms and legs move away from your center for double leg stretch. We reach. Arms circle around, back to that tabletop leg. Three, 2, last one. And we'll reset back to the mat. Feet come to the floor into your butterfly stretch. Arms move out to a T position, palms up towards the ceiling. And again, head and neck will twist and look right over that right arm, right shoulder. Back to center, over to the left. One more each side. And slow to unwind. We're going to turn onto our left side for some of our sideline leg work. Starting with that bottom leg bent at the hip and at the knee. We're going to stay up on the elbow of that left arm. Now, if you don't want to post on the elbow, you can lay flat, head to the bicep, and laying flat to the mat. Also, if you have a pillow, you could put it underneath your head for support if you don't want to put any weight on this left arm at all. So I'm going to start in this supported position. I want to make sure the rib cage does not sag towards the floor. So I'm going to pull the rib cage up and in, roll the shoulder back and down. My bottom left leg is anchoring me through the hip all the way through to the foot, so I've got a good support. And then the right leg is going to lift and lower. You're going to get less range of motion up in your supported position, but you will get a little bit more lateral flexion through the obliques and through the right side of your torso. Three, 2, 1. We'll flex at the ankle, kick the foot and the leg forward, and then point the toe, reach back into hip extension, pulling that leg back behind us. As the leg is flowing forward into flexion and reaching back into extension, your upper body is staying as stable as possible. It's not swaying the opposite direction of the foot. We don't want to use our shoulders, our head, our back as a counterbalance for that movement of the leg and the hip. One more. And then we'll bend the knees, stack the legs, bring the heels back in line with our tailbone for the clamshell. Ribs and abdominals knit in, stay tight. It's very easy to over-relax in these sideline positions. We're going to pin the feet and the ankles together as the upper leg twists up and slow to unwind back down. Nice and smooth as that leg twists. Last two. And we'll work into our side plank. If you don't want to do a side plank where you're posting, a great way to modify or change the position is to do a double leg lift and hold, where you're holding here. You're going to get a good engagement of these upper obliques as you lift and hold the legs. So you could work that versus that side plank. I'm going to start with the bent knee and heels back in line with the tailbone. You could be on your elbow or up onto your hand and wrist for that side plank. And we're going to reach up towards the ceiling with that top right arm as you bring your hips forward, up and through. Pressing the glutes forward, pressing the hips forward to open and expand. Bring the rib cage in, pull the belly in tight, slide those shoulders down, squeeze through inner thighs. We reach up with that right arm, stretching long towards the ceiling, and we hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Nice and slow as you lower. Let's flip over onto that right side. Again, if you don't want to post on this right elbow, you can lay flat, head to the bicep, or head on a pillow if you don't want to put any weight on that bottom right arm. Bottom right leg is bent at the hip, knee, and ankle. And we're going to float the left leg. Nice proud chest. That leg lifts and lowers. We want to make sure that the right side of the rib cage is not sinking in and down towards the floor and the mat. You want to keep that alignment, that engagement, and the ribs knitted and pulled in nice and tight. Nice and smooth movement of that left leg as it lifts. One more. And we'll pause. Take a moment to reset. Left leg floats to parallel to the floor. We'll flex at the ankle, kick forward. Leg comes forward on the exhale, point the toe, reach back into extension. You're going to get more movement on the flexion portion of that rep as the leg comes forward. Less movement of the leg for extension as you reach that left leg back behind you. Stabilizing the upper body so you get little to no sway. Last two. And we'll bend the knees, stack the legs. Bring the heels back in line with the tailbone. And we'll work our clamshell. Left knee and leg twist and rotate up towards the ceiling. And slow to reset back to that bottom right leg. Keeping the feet connected, the heels glued together as the leg twists in the hip. You're only getting rotation of the leg in the hip. You're not getting that twist through the low back. One more. And we're going to move into our side plank. Again, if you do not want to do the side plank, a great modification is to do those double leg lifts and holding here nice and strong. If you don't want to put any weight on that bottom right arm at the elbow or at the wrist. bent knee, the heel's back in line with the tailbone. You can be on your forearm for your side plank or up onto the hand and the wrist. Shoulders are down. Left arm reaches up towards the ceiling, and on the exhale, we pick the hips up, press them forward, reaching up nice and long. Squeeze through glutes, inner thighs, as we knit the rib cage in. Finding that alignment, ear, shoulder, hip to knee. And we hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Slow to lower. Let's flip over face down. Working into some of our back extension exercises. We'll start with basic back extension. Arms are reaching nice and long down by your side. Now, if you don't want to be on your stomach, you could always do some of these standing, facing a wall to add that chest lift. So you're doing it from a standing position versus putting weight face down. Arms are reaching long towards your knees or your feet, and on the inhale, we lift head, neck, and chest. Drawing our chest, our face away from the mat, or if you're standing, away from the wall, and then back to neutral. Face is floating up off of the mat as you lower. Your legs are strong and active. We want to make sure that our legs are reaching long off the end of the mat, stretching towards the back of the mat. That will help to support the low back and keep a lot of the tension out of the lumbar spine. One more. Hands come to the front. Your forehead's going to rest to the back of the hands. We're going to go for a single leg lift into extension. On the inhale, right leg reaches up, kicks back, and slow to lower. Let's stay on this right side as we lift. One more with that right leg. And we'll switch over to the left side. Tuck the tail, engage through the abdominals, through the back extensors, and inhale, left leg lifts and lowers. Nice and smooth hip extension. One more. Hands come by the chest on the mat or up against the wall if you're standing. Roll the shoulders back and down. Light pressure of the hands to the mat or wall. And we inhale to lift head, neck, and chest. And slow to lower. Inhale to lift and lower. You can use your hands and your arms to provide more support for your spine. The less contact you have with the mat or with the wall if you're standing, the more spinal muscle engagement you need, the more abdominal engagement you need to support that movement. Nice big chest lift into that thoracic extension, and we hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you're on the mat, we're going to push up And we're gonna sit back into our child's pose. If you're standing, go for a roll down towards the floor. Stretching out your back, stretching out the back of the legs. Reaching the arms nice and long overhead. Letting our tailbone tuck. And on that next exhale, we curl up. And we restack the spine, nice and long, nice and tall. Let's go for some of our lunge stretches. We haven't worked those in some time now. So you could do these kneeling or standing. I'm going to start in the kneeling position. I'm going to bring my right foot forward. Left knee is down on the mat. If you're going to go for standing, you just need that back leg nice and straight. Use any support that you need, a chair, a wall, a table, nothing that slides or moves. Shoulders roll back and down. We find that elongation of the spine, that stacking of the spine, nice and tall, so you automatically feel that stretch in the left thigh up into the hip. And then we start to press forward. Creating more stretch in that left leg, left hip. And then we'll bring the chest up for the ceiling. Adding a little bit of extension through the upper back. Even dropping the head back. And slow to come forward. Hands to the mat. Walk your right foot across. Lay the leg down on the mat. And then we're going to move a little bit from side to side. We'll glide that right leg back. And we'll bring our left foot forward. Into that kneeling lunge stretch. Find your balance, find your support, and we start in that nice tall position. Shoulders are rolled back and down as we pull the rib cage in. We zip up from pubic bone up those lower, middle, and upper abdominals. And then we start to press the hips forward. Keeping that nice, strong upper body position. And then the chest can lift more. Lifting up towards the ceiling. Head can drop back even. Requires a bit more balance. Slow to unwind. And then we'll walk that left foot across and into our pigeon stretch. A little bit of a shift and a rock from hip to hip. Sliding that left leg back, we sit back once again into child's pose. Or if you're standing, returning to that roll down, rolling down towards the floor. Reaching the arms nice and long overhead. And on that next exhale, we curl up and we restack. Restacking the back, vertebra by vertebra. Arms reach up nice and long overhead. Stretching up towards the ceiling, we lean up and over to the right. Pull that left arm over for that bigger stretch through the rib cage and the underarm. And center. Lengthen and lift. over to the other side. And center. One more each side. And arms rest. All right, guys. Awesome work this morning. Thank you so much.